Welcome back to the Self Trust Solution Podcast. Today's conversation is a powerful one. I'm joined by Chanda Coston, a woman whose life has been shaped by courage, reinvention, and an extraordinary relationship with self trust. Chanda's journey spans leaving an abusive relationship, raising her children, serving in the military, thriving in corporate leadership, and ultimately stepping into entrepreneurship and coaching on her own terms. What struck me most about this conversation is how clearly it shows that self trust doesn't always begin as confidence. Sometimes it begins as survival. Sometimes it begins as love for someone else more than it does ourselves. And sometimes it begins with giving yourself permission to take the next best step, even when the future is unclear. This episode is for anyone standing at a pivot point, anyone navigating reinvention, and anyone learning to trust themselves without waiting to feel ready. I'm really honored to share this conversation with you. Let's get into it. Chanda, I'm so excited to have you here. You've lived so many seasons of reinvention, military, corporate, government, entrepreneurship. Each
Yeah.
one tells a story of what I see as courage and trust. So let's start there. Want to take us back?
Mm. Well, the military, people think like, oh, you're going into the military. What is that about? For me, it was an escape.
Mm.
And so I was married to an abuser and I had 3 young girls. And I realized at some point that it was going to be me or him. And I was like, what is going to happen to my children? And so that journey of self-trust and pivoting actually had nothing to do with trusting myself. It was more about loving my babies. It was a really good step for me, right? Because it gave me stability. It taught me discipline, right? And perseverance to push through. But also in that, I learned to trust myself because when I jumped off that cliff, it was a culture shock, but it was needed. And so that's how I landed in the military. And, no regrets. It gave us everything we needed in that season, right? Um,
Did you
and
notice, like, was it more survival or pressure than trust? What do you think at that
no,
moment?
I think at that moment it was survival, but I wasn't even thinking about my survival. I was thinking about the survival of my children. I just woke up one day and I said, I got into the point he had threatened to kill me. And I got into the point where I said, either he's gonna kill me and then he's gonna go to prison and what's gonna happen to my babies, or I'm gonna kill him and I'm gonna go to prison, what's gonna happen to my babies? And so I made the decision to leave. And in that decision, it left us in a vulnerable place, living with family in a 1 room, twin bed, 4 people, right? And the military lured me in. They chose me, I chose them. They lured me in, and I was like, I'm gonna do this because I needed this stability for my children, right? But in that moment, it was um, just survival, but trusting that I was doing the right thing in the moment for our next, right? For our safety, for our future. And so I think that began, and I never looked back.
Do you think you would have made that choice if it were just for you?
No, 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 no. I
Mm.
don't think so. Not at the moment, not in that season, right?
Yeah. What
Because
do you
it's
think the military, or what did you give yourself through joining the military?
I give myself permission, right? And I like to use that word because I always tell my clients when they come to me, like, give yourself permission. So we have that talk and I allow them to face themselves. I call it mirroring, right? They'll have a conversation. I'll ask them questions and I'll repeat it back to them. And a lot of times at the end of that, I said, you deserve it and you need to give yourself permission. And so I think in this journey of self trust, right? Along the way, as we pivot, a big part of that is giving yourself permission.
Yes. And you have several pivotal transitions, right? From leaving an abusive relationship
Yeah.
to the military into entrepreneurship. So which moment would you say tested your self-trust the most?
Mm, I think, definitely the entrepreneurship journey, right? The irony to mine is leaving the military and going into corporate, it was jumping from one situation where I was trusting an organization to another situation where I was trusting an organization,
Hmm.
right? Yes, I had the skill set, right? The tenacity and the perseverance. I could show up, I could present myself. But when you step into entrepreneurship, it is now saying I'm trusting myself to provide the stability that my family needs, right? And all those things that come with it. And so I would say that's the biggest. For me, there's still a plot twist, if you will. When I started, I decided I was going to do government contracting, consulting. Um, I knew like about to do this great thing. I'm going to build this big company, right? And I lost my brother to gun violence, and I started my nonprofit. And so I began to build my nonprofit, and it's still in existence. I still have it. It's doing amazing. But that's what birthed in me, and serving people and teaching people and mentoring people through programs. That's what birthed the coaching piece. And so that was the plot twist. I did do the consulting. I was successful at it. And I realized I'm no longer happy in this space, right? And I trusted myself to pivot again. And so that's how I actually pivoted into coaching. Quite the journey. We have
Yeah.
time, right? It's like, what is this?
Well, and you bring that truth about like from military to corporate,
Mm,
while you are absolutely have the skill set and the autonomy and the like, you set yourself apart and you excel in those. But it's easy for us to think that we are being, I noticed this for myself, that we are creating that, but our subconscious is really finding that the safety belongs in the structure of, say, the military or their business.
oh, yeah.
And so when we go into entrepreneurship, we carry all of our awesome like skills and ability and that mindset, but we also carry that silent belief that it's in the structure of the business, the military,
Right.
whatever, paycheck,
That too.
right? And so it really is such, I know for everything that you went through, n- noticing that it really was the external motivation of your children, right?
Mhm.
That got you from relationship to military.
Oh, yeah.
And then you start like seeing your power and turning that into like corporate career and then
Oh, yeah.
even into some entrepreneurship. But each pivot is requiring a little bit more self-trust from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like building a giant in the dark.
Yeah. Was there a moment or a conversation or a quiet realization that made you think like, I can't keep doing this without trusting myself differently or more?
Mm, in a sense, I'd say, right? Um, I think again, and I keep going back to the permission piece. I think it's so important to kind of step outside of the noise and to identify yourself and to separate yourself from all the pieces and to give yourself permission to have the confidence, right? Because I think that's the piece that's lacking a lot of times. It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I should. Like, what does that look like? How do I do that? And it's like, girl, you can do this. I think you can do this. Like, trust yourself to do this. Like, if you take the structure and the knowledge and the perseverance and the tenacity and show up the way you've shown up, then, it has to come. It has to break, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's the missing piece,
Yeah.
right?
I'd say you don't even need the confidence. Like the confidence comes from doing. You could just do it messy with courage. That's where self-trust,
I do kind of believe that.
nothing self-trust really shines because it says, like, I can't expect myself to be perfect at something I've never done before, but I trust myself to learn from every
Yeah,
mistake,
no, I do
every
believe
lesson.
that. I do absolutely agree with that. So one of the things I do tell everyone is progress over perfection, right? You go back, you identify lessons, you streamline it, and you do it again, and you do it again until you get it right? So you're constantly charting or recorrecting to go in the direction you want. So I absolutely agree with that. And I would say I do that a lot. People seem to think I know a lot, and I'm like, I go and I dive and I figure it out, and I just jump in with both feet.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Sometimes that's it. I always say I talk about being a leaper. I'm someone who leaps.
yeah, me
It's
too.
not always the smartest, right? Like, I don't always know where I'm landing. But I will say you get 100% more data from leaping than you do from worrying about where you're landing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also clarity comes from movement, right? If you're standing still, it's hard to decipher, but when you actually make the decision to move forward, then at least you kind of know because you've done something and you can kind of gauge what's next by the next step and the next.
Do it
So,
for data. That's what we talk about at the Self Trust Coach. Do it for data. Like, do it just to get some information because thinking about it, over
mhm,
researching, overthinking it yields nothing but
that's
time
good.
delay.
Yeah, no, I like that.
So you said each season has, and I could totally see how each season would require kind of a new version of you.
Oh, yeah.
So what have you seen in that evolution of yourself through this?
Uh, well, clearly growth, change, right? More clarity. Um, my last season, I was an empty nester. I say was because grown children come back sometimes, they leave, right? But it was the first time I was left with myself and I had no one to consider, no one to think about, no one to cater to, right? Except me. Just me and my pup. Have a Frenchie named Sire. But I have 5 grown adult children and I had spent my entire life catering to their needs and after their needs, catering to my grandkids' needs. And it was like I moved 4 hours away from everybody. It's like, wow, it's quiet here. It's just me and my thoughts, me and myself. What are you gonna eat? What are you gonna do? What do you want? Right? And a lot of times as women, we don't embrace that. We don't take that in. And I feel like there needs to be a support group for empty nesters. But outside of that, I think it gave me a chance to kind of like self reflect in a deeper way. Right. Because when you're surrounded by everyone else's needs, a lot of times it doesn't make space for yours. And it's like,
Yeah, and when you had that time
yeah.
to do that, how did that affect how you approach like your business, your leadership, or even your family life?
Uh, it helped a lot, actually. It allowed me to be more focused on the inner me, right?
Mm.
And what I want and what peace looks like and success looks like. So no more chasing things. And now I'm chasing moments. My favorite thing right now is sunsets and sunrises.
Mm.
Um, And so I chase those around the world, I like to travel. So my business allows me to do that. And because I design it that way, because that's the season of life I'm in. And that's okay because that looks different for everyone else. But it's trusting yourself to be your best self. And even when you're not, right? You're human. It's okay when you're at your worst because we all have those days. So
For sure. What surprised you most about how others have responded to your evolution?
whew, uh, interesting. Lots of different responses there. Um, from family, sometimes they feel like I'm being a little standoffish because I have unplugged days now. Only have certain work days. So sometimes my clients are like, but I'm only, and I'm like, I'll make an allowance for you, but this can't be a habit because this is my schedule. Versus corporate, right? You're there early in the morning, you leave late in the evening. There's one thing after the next. You're constantly burned out. And even if they give you a kudo, it's overshadowed by the next big thing, right? And so it's like taking a moment to enjoy your wins and to deal with your sorrows. People, me personally, I've gotten peace with not necessarily worrying about what people think. It's freedom in that. That sounds really morbid and horrible, but it's very freeing, in a world of social media where everything is based on clicks and likes, right? Just being
Mm.
able to detach, being able to be free in your actions and your mindset and serving yourself. at your best self or your self, depending on what that day is like. Um, and then having those honest conversations with your clients to say, it's okay if today wasn't perfect, right?
Yeah. Do you ever sit back and just reflect on the difference of what you just said and what your life was like when you were in
The churn.
that relationship?
Oh, um, more recently than not. Um, but in the I was kind of like you, where we spoke about, you were reflecting and how it wasn't so fresh before because we kind of compartmentalize and put things in a box. But when
Mhm.
you look back over the span of time to see how far you've come and how you've changed, it's almost like you don't recognize the person that you were to the person that you've become, if that makes any sense.
It makes so much sense, but wow, like what an opportunity to be impressed by yourself. If you take that look.
Yeah, well, I never thought of it in that light. More so, there is, well, I wouldn't say impressed, more proud, I think. Like,
Yeah.
proud that I made it, proud that I came out of it, proud that I was able to overcome, proud that I'm wise enough to know that at this big age that I'm not done,
Yeah.
that there's more, right? Because sometimes we don't feel like that. We're like, oh my God, we're stressing about everything around us at the moment. But
Mhm.
it's good to know, like, there's tomorrow, God willing, right? And there's more.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I just recorded a podcast episode. It comes out. It'll already be out once this has aired. It aired on November 19th of 2025. And it is about the power of looking back
Mm,
because so often we're comparing ourselves to where we want to be. And it feels like this brick wall that we have to overcome or climb or move. Instead of there is power in looking back from where we came
yeah.
because it shows, and for you specifically here, like how powerful to see what you've created, what you've been able to endure and overcome and create and accomplish, and the ripple effects of that in your life and the lives of your clients.
Yeah. Well, it goes further than that, right? So we always talk about legacy and we talk about family. And
Yeah.
so just knowing that I can be a safe place to my children so they won't have to endure anything like that. And they'll have options, right? Ironically enough, I have two daughters in the military, but they chose to go in the military. It wasn't something that was a survival instinct for them, right? And
You've
so,
created generational change.
yeah. So,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to invite you again to maybe be impressed by yourself. Just saying.
Well, yeah, I'm impressed. To put it that way, I'll use your word. I typically say I'm proud. Like
Yeah. I
one of
think it
my
can be both. Yeah. Cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
One
love
of
it.
my gratitude moments every day, I get up when the house is quiet, right? And I walk through my house and I just take a moment and just take in uh, where I am and how I live. And
Yeah.
then it's on my terms because the world is a little, crazy right now. But it's not inside of my home. There's peace in my home. There's
Mhm.
provision in my home. There's safety in my home. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't have that. And so I don't take it for granted, right? I just take a moment to be grateful because it wasn't always like that,
Yeah.
right? And that's sobering, very sobering.
But so impactful for the work that you do, right? You having that experience and understanding
Yeah.
is what makes you so, yeah, good at what you do. So that matters, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think,
If you
yeah.
could go back and speak to maybe the version of you who is still searching for stability or even like searching for how do I do this on my own, right? Like, what would you say to her?
Mm, uh, Keep going, right? Continue to trust yourself, right? Because you are headed in the right direction. You know more than you think you know, and you will go further than you can imagine.
You, oh God, I love it. So, for anyone who's listening, who's standing at their own kind of pivot point, you've been through several. What
Yeah.
would be one piece of advice that you would give them to trust themselves more today?
And the person that's about to pivot and who's not sure that it's the right thing to do, I would say take the leap because you deserve it, right? YOLO is one of my favorite sayings. You only live once. So live, no regrets.
And you know what? Wherever you land, you're gonna be more evolved, more grown, and wiser because you're gonna have more
Absolutely.
information. Okay. Okay. Tell us about the work that you're doing now.
So now I get to help women, typically around the age of 40, a little below, a little above, right? I help them get clear on their business, do the thing that they love for the season that they're in, right? And to hold them accountable to move forward in their business, to create legacy and sustainable income. Um, uh, it makes sense for me. I'm walking the path. I can see the journey. I can see the way they should go, and it makes me warm inside. To put it plainly, right? It doesn't burn me out like corporate, but I can do the thing I'm good at all while doing the thing I love.
So fun when we can match that together, right?
Yeah, it makes a
And
difference.
you have this, I'm like so blown away by this one-on-one tiny challenge that you're offering to our listeners. Please tell them about it because it's the most generous offer I think I've ever had from a guest.
The one-on-one tiny challenge is just that people have the ability to work with me over the course of 3 days, 1 hour increments for $21. They tell me a problem they want to solve in their business, and we get it done. After those 3 days, if they show up and do the work, if they're not happy with the solution and the time we spent, they can get their $21 back. They also walk away with a 90-day plan of action. So um, it kind of makes sense in this space. Instead of throwing more information at them, we say, hey, what's the issue? Let's solve it. And then this is how you can execute if it's not completely done at the end of 3 days. So,
So a no-brainer. Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. It's such an honor to be able to spend this time with you and to share your story with listeners, both to see the power of self trust in their lives and business, the way you've been able to use it to make many transformational pivots and create transformational or generational change and legacy and so much impact. The ripple effects will likely never fully know, but it's so powerful and appreciate that. And then also to share what you do with our listeners and your generous information invitation for this one-on-one 3 day tiny challenge. So thank you for your time.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I loved this conversation with Chanda. Watching it back, I'm struck with the depth of wisdom that comes from lived experience, the kind you don't get from theory, but from choosing yourself again and again, even when it's uncomfortable. Chanda's story is such a powerful reminder that self trust isn't about having all the answers. It's about believing that you'll learn, adapt, and rise as you go. If something in this episode resonated with you, I encourage you to sit with it. Let it be proof of what's possible when you give yourself permission to move forward, even imperfectly. You'll find links in the description to connect with Chanda and learn more about her work, including her incredibly generous 3 day tiny challenge. Thanks for being here, for listening, and for trusting yourself enough to keep growing. I'll see you in the next episode.